Day 4. I'm supposed to go right into day 4, right? Day 4. You guys keep track of me. Day 4, dare to stay strong. Now, this says Acts 21:27 through 23:11. I am not reading that whole thing to you. But I bet you've read the book of Acts before, hopefully, and you can skim it for yourself. But the life application, I can trust God to help me have self-control and honor Him with my actions. So just a brief summary of what's going on here. This is Paul. And I don't know who said it, but they said, everywhere Paul went to preach, he started a riot, which is pretty much true. And he was contrasting that to preaching. Today, we won't get into that since I'm a preacher. But he said everywhere Paul went, there was problems. And there was. We read through these. Paul gets arrested. Paul speaks to people, and they get mad. And he has to recount a story. And then he gets arrested again, and there's plots to kill him. And he has to stand before the council. And he gets sent before the governor. Paul keeps getting in trouble for his preaching. Yet he continues to do it, and there's always opposition. There's people on both sides. The government doesn't want him preaching. The Jews don't want him preaching. They make plots to just get rid of him. And Paul keeps preaching even when he knew what he was saying might not be popular. Paul had the strength to do that, and I think that's one thing we need to focus on with the adults and not just the kids, is that God's truth is God's truth, whether it's popular or not. And unfortunately, this is so hard for kids to understand because we were all kids and we were all teens. We know that it's nice to be popular. It's nice to be liked. We want to be liked. You want a good group of friends. You don't want to be the one that everyone points at and snickers at. But what's more important? What's more important, being popular or being true to God's word? Paul knew. And again, this is real hard to translate to little kids, and this may be something that they hear now and are able to learn later as they're older, but it's something they need to begin to understand. That just because your teacher says it, just because your friends say it, just because the newspaper says it or the TV show says it, or whoever says it, just because they say it, doesn't make it right. Only what God says is right. And Paul had the courage to do that. And one of the things we learn about this, though, this says, I can have self-control, and I was trying to read, what are they talking about here? Well, look at how Paul responded. There were folks yelling. There were folks wanting to kill him. There were folks chasing him out of town. And what did he do? Did he yell back? Did he start telling your mama jokes to him and try to get him mad? I mean, did he fight back with him? Did he start screaming at them? Did he try to start an argument with them and try to prove how he was right and prove how they were all wrong? No. Sometimes that's how the church responds, but he didn't do that. That wasn't his job. That wasn't his worry. That wasn't his concern. He responded calmly with all of them. Paul was a forceful preacher, and he spoke the truth unapologetically, but he didn't attack the folks on the other side. All he was doing was trying to show the rightness of God. He wasn't trying to show their wrongness all the time. That's not what he was about. And one group that he was facing thought God could only love one group of people. The Jews thought God could only love one group of people. And he angered the people when he said God can love everyone. The Jews said, there's no way. We're the chosen people. And there was another group who had disagreements over the resurrection. Right? If you want to go back, that's the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The Pharisees believed in resurrection. The Sadducees didn't. So they always fighting against each other. And they got angry when Paul stated his belief in resurrection. But he wouldn't stop preaching. He wouldn't stop telling the truth. And he didn't worry about, well, I'll say this to this group of people, and I'll say this to that group of people, hoping they'll be happy and saying two different things. He always preached the truth. He always preached the resurrection. He always preached Jesus Christ. And Paul was able to do all of this, and I think he would be the first to tell you, not because he was so tough, and not because he was so smart, and not because he was so strong. Paul doesn't have really good words about himself after he became a Christian. He boasts about what he was like before he became a Christian, but afterwards he said, I came to you trembling. I came to you barely able to preach. I came to you in weakness. He had that thorn in his side, whatever that was, another weakness. Paul wasn't able to do all this because he was so tough. He did it because he relied on God and God's truth to have the final say. We can have all kinds of battles that we're in trying to bring the gospel, and we can fight those all different kinds of ways. But what Paul would say is, don't fight the battles, just preach the gospel. Little kids, if there's kids at school who make fun of them for being a Christian, or there are little kids who make fun of them for doing something nice or being a Christian, a Christ-like act, they can fight back all kinds of ways. Little kids are clever in how they can hurt each other. They learn it young, right? But what do we tell them? Not your job. That's not your job to defend God. That's not your job to defend Jesus. It's not your job to defend the church or your mom or your dad. Your job is simply to tell the truth. Your job is simply to live as Christ wanted you to live. That's what Paul did. He didn't get involved in any kinds of that other stuff. He stayed focused on bringing the message of hope, of resurrection to the folks around him. That's how he dared to stay strong. All right, we have another song.